There you go, Mike's working. So call this meeting to order. First off, we've got some additions to the agenda tonight. We'll have a closed session for section 17, 23, 24, 25, and 27. Any other additions, Councillor Adams?
I would like to add to the agenda under new business 4E, Clean Energy Improvement Program.
Okay. Any other additions? If not, motion to accept the agenda as amended. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. We'll jump right into delegations. We've got a couple tonight. We'll start with Community Futures. If you want to come forward and introduce yourself. Joanne's going to make sure she turns on the mic.
Hi guys, I'm Josh Friesen from the Community Futures organization.
I'm Rumley Vance, also
Welcome.
Community Futures.
All right, thanks for taking us, you guys. So we want to kind of update you of what kind of projects we're working on lately, how we're impacting the community, as well as what we're hoping to be putting on in the future. As well as we have a proposal that we're going to bring forward to the council. We'll be sending you a formal proposal written down so you can review it and consider it later on after this presentation. But we want to give you a little gist beforehand.
Okay.
To start off, I just kind of want to touch base on some of the projects we've been running in the community and throughout the region. Lemonade Day and Head Start in Business are youth programs that we've been running for the last few years, very successfully. Obviously, the last 2 years were a little challenging to get into schools, but the program has run with great success. We've had over 700 students participate in our business training courses from K to 12. And it's been a really great impact for teachers as well, because they get to see different things and different kind of curriculum items. All the things we teach in Lemonade Day and Head Start, or not Lemonade Day, sorry, in Head Start in Business are curriculum linked. So teachers can use them for marketing. The program is free for the schools. We come in, we teach the whole program. We bring all the supplies. And basically we are prepping our youth to think about business as a future, not just as you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can also be an entrepreneur. And that's kind of the rhetoric that we're trying to embed into them. Lemonade Day is a smaller program and it's just a short term. It runs throughout the spring up until summer. The June 22nd is usually the day that we have the Lemonade Day where everyone sets up these stands. Also teaching kids about saving money, about budgeting. It teaches them about basic business skills and marketing, and it teaches them how to give back to the community as part of the program is donating to your charity or a cause locally. So that program is still running. It's doing really well, and we hope to continue with it moving forward. The only thing we ask is that promote it. If you like the program and if you think it's great for kids, just promote it and get it out there. The next one we've been working on for a while, it's called BASE. It's Best Alberta Customer Experience. This is our customer service program that we've been really focusing on. And currently we have licensed for the materials. I should explain what it is just in case. Mm-hmm. We recognize through a few surveys and studies that we've done throughout the region and the last 4 years that customer service was an issue amongst many small businesses who either couldn't afford to take the time to do heavy onset customer service training, or because the skill sets of the current employees weren't up to par. So we wanted to address that by creating a system that would work for small businesses and be very affordable for small businesses. We've been working on this idea for a long time, and we finally found the materials already pre-made for us. A company out of Australia and Singapore has pre-made materials that are ready to go. So we've purchased the license for those. And right now we're building a site, basically a hub, an online hub that these staff members can access to do the training, as well as quizzes. And it's all in short, small videos, because I understand the customer service experience and the industry, and that you have very short amounts of time to do that training. So this is training that you can fit in 5 to 10 to 15-minute blocks. So very easy to implement. Other portions of that program is an ambassador program that we're working on right now to develop. And then the third portion is a secret shopper program that we're looking to run throughout the area. Currently, we're planning to be piloting this in Slave Lake. We've had a couple businesses, Tyler Warren, your business was also interested in that one. So we've had a few businesses interested and voiced their interest, and we're hoping to be able to launch. I'm hoping for late spring. It just depends on the development of our site, our online learning platform. So currently it's slated for late spring to be completed, but that one I think will be really great for our region. And we're already in talks with the ECDEV group that you guys are working with, that the town of Slave Lake is working with, to implement other learning things into our program, such as learning about the Slave Lake area and learning about what was the other portion? It was learning about recommending other businesses and experiences throughout the region. So we're hoping to integrate other opportunities for our region as well, because that's part of the customer service experience here. I'm just going to keep rolling. If you guys ask questions, ask questions. Spark the North is a conference that we're putting on in the High Prairie region, but we are really hoping that everyone from our entire region goes. We have some big name speakers at this one. What's his name? Aaron, I can't pronounce his last name, but I'll get the details to you guys later. If you want, it will be posted on our Facebook page as well as our website. The speakers are all speaking to labor retention and attraction, and in addressing the issues that we're facing today. Everyone across Canada and probably North America are facing labor shortages. This is not a problem that's going to go away. We reviewed quite a few studies already, about 3 different studies we've reviewed, and found that this is going to be a common theme for many years for our businesses and our region. And so we want to find ways to address it and at least bring light to the situation. And so we're encouraging a lot of business owners as well as council members to attend this conference, just so we can learn a little bit more and maybe gain some contacts to help each other out.
When is it, Josh?
Spark is at the end of May, May 26th.
A one-day event?
That is a Thursday. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll be launching the marketing materials for that soon. It has not been made public yet, but we figured we'll share it with you guys because we really would like the support to go.
This is live, so it's public now.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're welcome to know, and then they can hunt for it and they'll find it. The next one is Digital Service Squad. So Community Futures, we signed up for a program where we are going to be launching 2 staff members to work with businesses to help improve their digital footprint. And that could be in many ways. The program is free for businesses to utilize. They basically sign up with us. We do an assessment of their business and what their footprint looks like online. And then based on that assessment, we make recommendations of what they can change next. So it could be as simple as helping a business get a Google listing up, or it could be helping improve their website for them. We have intensive training for these 2 people. It's all through the Digital Service Squad program through Ontario, and they just launched it in Alberta. And so we will be launching ours pretty soon here. Most likely we'll be starting services in April or May. But currently businesses are allowed to sign up through our website at communityfuturesSL.com, and that will allow them to get on the list of businesses to get support. We are hoping to support at least 108 businesses in our region and get them just that next step up. That's the goal with this program, is just to get them one step further ahead to get more awareness of our region. It's actually very important for our region in regards to not just tourism, but attraction of other businesses to know what's out there. Right now, if you try and Google for contractors, you're going to be hard pressed to find many contractors online. And so that's our goal, is try and get as many people available and visible online as possible in our region.
And it extends all the way to, there is a potential for coaching to set up an online store. And the first few months paid for that.
Okay.
So that will be launching pretty soon for our region. The next one is Love Local, Shop Local. This is just an online, it's not just, we created basically an online directory through our website. But that's just one portion of it. The idea is as soon as businesses sign up, we try and do our best to feature them through different platforms. So we do paid ads and boosted ads for these businesses. And no cost to them, just to help promote other businesses, as well as the directory. We're hoping if anyone else or any other organization wants to utilize it, we would give them rights to utilize it. Everyone who gets on the directory gets a pin on a map. Of course, we know other organizations. The town is working on their directory as well. So we're hoping that either yours overshadows us, or you're welcome to use ours as well in the future. We're pretty open to it. So it's cool. We pay for this service, and basically it pins them on the map. They can put promos on their coupons. It makes it easy for them to manage. But we just wanted something to have a directory of some sort for our region that was up to date at the time when we were looking to promote these businesses through our online social media. So we'll continue promoting these businesses. We will have people going out to businesses to get them to sign up, and we'll continue promoting them. Whether we'll continue using our directory, that remains to be seen, but we'll continue using the program for now until there's a better directory for us to find and use. Slave Lake Slam, you guys, I believe, are aware of Slave Lake Slam that's happening right now. So there's an ice fishing tournament across Slave Lake. It was just featured on Global not too long ago, just a couple days ago in the morning. We're hoping that we can get more. We have a slow uptake right now. I don't blame anyone because the weather's been weird. But hopefully we can get a few more people involved. And this could lead to another event for the future in the next coming years as a winter event for this region. Currently, we don't have many attractions throughout the winter, and this could be something that could be big. So if we can get this at least going and make it worthwhile, then we'll be able to refresh and redo it next year, hopefully as well. I'll just keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry, you guys, this is verbal.
Josh, we usually do all our questions at the end.
Okay,
so.
perfect. That works. The Slave Lake Regional Trade Show. Right now, we're working on a trade show for the Slave Lake area for May
6th and 7th.
Thank you, Robin Lee. 6th and 7th. We're actually hoping to pair this up and not just make it a trade show, but a trade show and job fair all in one. The idea is to address multiple issues for businesses all at one go, and to capitalize on that moment where entrepreneurs are together and general public are together. So that's what we're hoping to launch. We will be sending out RSVPs next week, if not this week. And we'll get started on that planning pretty soon. So that's in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce. And then we are working on, you're already working, I'm gonna skip that one. LeaderCast, so you guys are aware, we've partnered with the town of Slave Lake to LeaderCast. We don't really need to talk too much about it, but if you're watching, please buy tickets and go, because it's well worth it. And then we'll get right into the beautification proposal. Did you guys get the presentation? Nope, that is okay. We're going to present, I'm just going to present offhand, and then you guys can ask questions. I will be sending a formal proposal for this project coming up here right after this. So we've talked about, the town has talked about downtown revitalization for a long time. And there's actually been made headway now, which is really exciting. The one thing that we noticed, though, there was no incentive for businesses to apply the new zoning and the new look to town. So we wanted to create a program that would incentivize businesses to do so and to make the change and to basically refresh our downtown areas. So we came up with this, well, we didn't come up with this program. We discovered this program. Robin Lee discovered this program from a few other CFs down south. Tabor is one of the towns that we have an example from. And what it is it's a loan program that allows someone to borrow money at a low interest rate, if not no interest, to specifically to revamp their frontages of their business or the main interiors of their businesses to beautify the area. The loan program, depending on how it's run, can be a program where the interest is funded by a third party. So that's what the incentives, you get a free interest, interest-free loan, or that there's a grant attached to each development that they do. Currently, we are looking to launch this program throughout a region to encourage people to beautify their businesses, to reinvest into their spaces. And this would be directed to both landowners as well as business owners who are leasing. So both, depending again on the community. Each community that we approach with this project, we are willing to work with them on the terms. And the reason we're looking to work with them on the terms is that we're hoping for a contribution to either cover the insurances or some small grant
The
form.
interest.
Interest, basically, it's
yeah.
the interest what we are looking for
Yeah.
to cover. The interest rate is 5% for those loans, each loan. And the maximum loan amount that we're willing to give on this loan project is about $20,000. We're trying to create two different loan programs. One is $10,000 or less, and then one is $10,000 to $20,000. The first micro lending program, the $10,000 or less, is just different terms for collateral and different terms for application fees. And then, so we don't take any collateral on those loans. They're just small loans. Don't take any collateral. We take the risk on the funds, other than a personal guarantee on that. And then the application fee is $100. The $10,000 to $20,000, we're looking at doing a full collateral on that one, basically full security on that one, as well as a 2% application fee for those loans coming in to process the paperwork. The program we're hoping to run for about their 3-year loan terms. So it's a short-term loan. The payments, if they max it out, are about $556 a month for a $20,000 loan, which we felt was quite reasonable for repayment of a larger renovation. And of the $10,000, it would be about $278 per month. We're not necessarily wanting to max out the loans, meaning the loan isn't meant to be like, they ask for $20,000, we give them $20,000. The idea is that they bring forward a proposal for a project on how much they want to spend, and we give them the amount they need to spend for that project. So the interest would only be charged towards the amount that they're borrowing.
So what kind of term on that, Josh?
3-year term.
3-year term.
3-year term. Essentially, if the town were to give out, let's just look that one up, sorry. Might not have it in here, that's okay. Essentially, if the town were to give out $200,000 in loans, which would be a lot, that would be 10 to 20 loans. That would be about a $15,000 investment into that project. But it would be an additional $200,000 of reinvestment into your community and into the frontage of the buildings. That means 10 to 20 businesses downtown would be revamping their frontages.
Yeah, and actually it doesn't have to be exclusively our downtown zone.
It's
Yeah.
whichever the zone, the municipality we're working with wants, is how we're planning it. The idea is that it is a great opportunity to invest into those businesses, to show that the town cares, as well as incentivize them to make those changes, to make our place look beautiful and great. And I won't lie, it's a great program for Community Futures to get loans out there as well and support our community in that way.
Just a quick question here. So who actually loans the money in this proposal? Is it the town or is it Community Futures?
Community Futures. So the pool of funds comes from our pool of funds.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're asking potentially the town to cover the interest.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So the proposal is that we ask the town to cover the interest of those loans. Of course, we can build terms in there, such as if they don't repay the loan, the interest is non-forgivable, or we can build other terms in there where they pay their loan off early. Then of course, we only charge the town the interest that would be charged to the client.
Right, so to qualify here, that $15,000 to $20,000 that you're talking in interest is per year for the 3 years.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 15,000 would be like our dream, but so yes, if you were to invest, let's say we were going for a goal of $200,000 lent out for our town, that would be it's just over $15,000 total in interest for all 3 years altogether. Yes,
for all 3 years altogether, so 5,000 a year?
yes, yeah, for 5%.
Okay,
So our interest rates, they're not, it's not like a mortgage. Our interest is calculated monthly based on the principal that's outstanding. So as the loan decreases, the interest payment also
Okay.
decreases. That's
Yeah.
why it's not as much as people think.
Yes.
It is upfront, the first year is expensive, but after that it gets less and less and less and less. So
okay, Councillor Ferguson.
So you said you looked at some of the other communities down south. How much uptake was there down there?
The example in Tabor had $10,000 maximum. They did have an economic development committee that was channeling 20%, a 20% grant and interest. And they had over 40, in 4 years, they had over 40 businesses take it up.
oh, okay.
Yeah, and it, I think it cost them, because there was a grant involved in that one.
Yeah.
It cost, I think, the community just over $200,000, but there was over $2 million worth of investment that actually went into the buildings, because people said, okay, I'll take a $10,000 loan, but hey, I'm in the renovation phase. They took the loan, but they
extra.
did additional renovations that improved businesses. So it was a huge uptake in that community.
And so there's obviously restrictions put in place to make sure that they follow through with the renovations on community future side, right?
Yeah, and one of the things that I know the communities that have been involved is one of that you want to have a quote prepared and you approve it based on the quote, and you release, and you could even direct to the contractors doing the money towards the contractors. But you actually, there's always a before and after, and then there's usually like an annual update from Community Futures that says, hey, these are examples of in your community this has happened, and before and after.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Josh, I'll let you finish. I had a bunch of questions here, but I'll.
Yeah, please go
You're
for
ready
it.
for them? Okay.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, so I'll start with say that I think actually at the beginning their Head Start program on made fantastic. You know, a number of members of council have helped out with some of the entrepreneurship things that have been going on in the schools. I think the Lemonade Day is crazy good for kids to get involved in, just understand how business works. That giving back component and understanding expenses and revenue, I think it's fantastic. You mentioned that you'd love some help to promote it, so let us know what that actually means. It's a matter of, hey, shipping out our posters and promoting that stuff. You know, we can cross promote some of the stuff with our town website stuff, send that through Jordan. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, exactly. Just talk about it. Yeah.
Send that to us. Looking forward to the customer service stuff for sure. The digital service squad. So you're looking for 108 businesses to sign up through that.
If not more, the more the merrier. So far, the grant, we applied for a grant to cover the cost of the program.
Okay.
And so the grant covers the cost of going with 108 businesses so far.
So is there training then that comes with that? Or is it just like, because you started out basically said like, hey, listen, we identify opportunities basically for your business to increase your and grow your digital footprint. Is it more of a report card? This is what you should go do it. Or is it a, hey, I actually think you'd benefit from social media online profile there, and this is how you can do it. We'll show you how, or there's training or something involved.
Yes, so it is actually the report card, and then we do the first next steps with them. So
it's a
for instance, yeah, there's a coaching. So we allocate about 5 to 10 hours per business of coaching and time to go through that next step with them to help them improve. So it's not a very short-term project. The project's slated to end next March. So we have some time to roll this out, and we'll have some staff, but yeah, you'll have coaching as well as after that coaching, you'll have the next steps to go forward, and we'll give suggestions to those who don't have the abilities to do it on their own, and give them some suggestions and connections to seek other help.
So as you guys create that, you know, I think that's a fantastic service for any business in the community, basically to get free advice and training. And so as you have information on that and it's put together, whatever else, I'm sure we would, you know, the town's quite business focused and economic development focused. We would love to send those messages out.
Perfect, great, yes.
So trade show that's happening May 6th and 7th. You finished, said it's a conjunction between the Chamber of Commerce and Community Futures.
Correct.
Is there, I know in the past there's kind of like been a theme of what that is, but you're talking job fair. Is there a theme now or what does that look like?
We don't have a theme yet.
Okay.
So we're still working on that. But what we are trying, the reason we're trying to corroborate the two is that Community Futures, we have certain goals that we have to reach. And so one of those goals is having some form of job fair. We were hoping to launch one in December in January, forgive me, not December. Unfortunately, it was postponed. So that's why we want to really work tightly with the chamber to help them make this happen. But no, we don't have a theme yet for it. Got ideas, send them our way sooner than later, because we're hoping to send those RSVPs out right away.
And lastly, the downtown beautification piece, I think we were talked about downtown and, how do you create some incentives? How do you create opportunities for some of the business and stuff down there? So I think the fact that we could do, you guys are looking at a loan program to help incentivize those groups. I look forward to seeing what your proposal and what it looks like. If we're on a path of economic development, I just see that those two could work very well hand in hand. Councillor Adams.
Just hopping back here again, we'll just throw you all over the
Yeah, go ahead.
place. For the Head Start business one, what kind of, you were saying you're in all the schools, is that all the schools, the elementaries, the middles, Catholic?
It can be in all the
public?
schools. We haven't had much luck with the high schools yet, but the program basically is K to 12. So we have about 5 different programs and they span about 2 to 3 grades each program, and they can be run from K to 12. The last program, Amazing Race, can actually be run for young adults as well and grown adults too. So yeah, it's
And then also I wanted on that business one for whatever section of town you guys identify or we identify or however it was supposed to, love the idea. I think it's a great way to start getting investment in, and it's a great way to get local businesses involved in that and start that economy piece. I love
Thank
it.
you. I have one more thing I should share with you that we would need to have addressed. Our planning department here, we have some restrictions that are a little bit, they constrict and make, and they're a bit of a barrier. And that is our deposits for development. So even for a paint job outside, it's a $4,000 deposit, which can be a bit of a restriction for a business who's just spending $10,000 or borrowing $10,000 for a project, along with whatever the other additional fees. I think there's a square footage fee as well that you pay. So I would love the town, if they're interested in this program, to also look at those deposits and maybe finding a way to work around them for this program to make it feasible. Because if I'm going to do, let's say I'm redoing the awnings and I have a bit of structural work, then I have a $10,000 deposit to pay on top of, I think it's $1 something per square foot of the building. That can be a bit of a barrier for someone wanting to invest into their business. So that's in one other area that I would.
So I will say council wants to look at our deposits and all of our fees when it comes to development permits. So there's a motion tasked to administration right now to look at that. And they're supposed to be bringing a report back. So we're as interested in it as you guys are. And
Good. Yeah.
it's on the radar.
Yeah. Awesome. So otherwise I'll send the proposal forward and let you guys mull it over.
Sounds good. Any other, Councillor Brandel?
I just want to say that I love this beautification program too. We were always talking about incentives ever since I got on council. So love it, love it. And you were talking about, Robin Lee was talking about how they fund it, where you actually pay the contractors. That's how the banks do it, because the banks were burned in the past, where they were giving cash backs to buyers. And then, we would list the house 3 years later and the work that they actually gave the money for wasn't done. So I would recommend doing that for sure. Just so
Yeah,
you have
community
some
futures,
control.
that is always one option, is to direct to pay whoever they need to purchase equipment or improvements or whatever.
Just
So
pay
that
for
is
quotes,
that
yeah.
is an option.
Yes.
And then one other question, when was LeaderCast?
When is LeaderCast?
Yeah.
May 4th.
Thank you.
May 4th? Perfect.
I'm not good
Thanks.
with dates. Don't ask me.
Okay, Councillor Hughes.
My mic doesn't want to work tonight. Hello. Just a couple quick general comments from me. I just wanted to say with the base program, I'm really happy to hear that you're kind of working on integration with Insight on that. I think that's really key. And the Spark also sounds great and I would love to attend that. And the Digital Service Squad. I'm just wondering if there might be some opportunity for collaboration with Tourism Society as we move forward and build our list of stakeholders and kind of build that out for our community as well. Maybe there's some way we can kind of align and help those people, you know, use that service that you guys have. I think that's fantastic. And I think a lot of local businesses will definitely benefit from that. So
Definitely.
please let us know about that program and send us that type of advertising as well so that we are able to share it. So.
Yes, we're working on our marketing materials right now. We basically just launched the info site where they can sign up through our site. So we'll send you guys the links for sure. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming, guys, and we look forward to that proposal when it's ready.
I'll send it right away.
Perfect. Okay, so moving along in our agenda, our next one is another delegation for tonight from Global Traffic. So as you guys jump out, they're gonna jump in.
Perfect. Did we get on the docket for the chamber? We didn't get on there.
Now, did you have something for the chamber?
We do, just quick, but
Okay.
I can wait. We can
Fire.
away. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate it. We just figured we're here, so we thought we tried to get in, but maybe we didn't. We
Because you
missed it.
promised it was quick.
Yes, it's quick.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys know we run a lot of programs for this town. We work on a lot of different activities and events that help promote and get people excited about Slave Lake, including Riverboat Days, our Moonlight Madness, our parades, and obviously the last few years has really just been not great. But we are on point to launch all those programs again. We're really excited, as well as more programs as we grow as an organization, including partnership with BASE. We're partnering with that and the trade show that we're looking to launch. This year, I don't know if you're aware, but we've done some strategic planning to refocus the chamber to really serve our members and serve the business community. So we're going to be introducing a new perspective as we move forward with the chamber, which we're really excited about. So focusing on our small business benefit program, advocacy, partnership, training, and more business support throughout the year, more networking events, more data collection, and most importantly, is getting involved with economic development and supporting economic development in any way we can. So we wanted to make a couple of small asks of the town of Slave Lake. One is, in regards to economic development, please involve us. Let us know. Let us get our members involved in economic development with you guys. And let us be a pull for data and someone who can share information out to businesses for you. We'd love to be that voice and to be that communicator between the two. Between the business community and the municipal world. The second ask is that we hope that the town of Slave Lake can also continue their contribution as they have in the last few years, and to think about us as we have had a struggle this last few years. All of our money-making events were canceled for the last 2 years, and we still have made it through, but we're asking that you consider us for your contributions if you are interested in the Chamber of Commerce continuing on. And those could be earmarked towards our events that are specific to helping the Slave Lake region through tourism and promotion.
Okay. So wrapping those ones up real quick, I will just say that one of the things is we talk about with the insider contractor about economic development. One of the pieces that we've identified that council is very interested in, as well as Insight is a business advisory council, to get some more input from stakeholders and the community and as a whole. And so actually they asked for a list of potential ideas and solutions, and I did send off to them that it was very important the Chamber of Commerce as well as Community Futures was involved. And these days that's easy because it's a 2-for-1 deal. So lots of opportunity there for sure.
Yes.
As well as I will say that our representative that attends the Chamber of Commerce has advocated very strongly that the chamber continues to need financial support. And so it is on the list of items to be debated through our budget process, which is currently ongoing.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay,
Appreciate it. Okay,
Okay.
I'll get out of your hair.
okay, thank you very much, guys. Have a great night. Okay, gentlemen. You want to come forward? Welcome back to Big Town of Slave Lake.
Well, thank you for having us.
I don't think last time you were here, we were live and on video, but we are, so feel free to introduce yourself for the people at home. And I'm really excited to talk about this DNA sequencing slideshow that you created for us.
Perfect.
Okay.
Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, councilors, Mr. Mayor. And my name is David Steer, and I'm the CEO of Global Traffic Group. And with me this evening, I'm joined by Larry Bellows, and he's our operations manager. And he's come to answer all of your interesting and challenging questions. And so with that, I'm happy to dive into our brief little slide deck. And by all means, save your questions or ask them or whatever the format.
With this one, because we've got slides there and some of the data that pops up, we'll probably interrupt as we go if council has, but feel free to get going.
Okay, perfect. So many familiar faces, and I think maybe there's a few new councilors, and I think I met some of you at the AUMA conference recently in Edmonton. But a very brief history, and for the returning councilors, sorry for the reiteration, but a number of years ago, back in early 2000s, there was the enabling legislation for automated traffic enforcement, and the Minister Heather Forsyth, so the Minister of Justice and Solicitor General, brought that enabling legislation forward. And that's what really allowed the smaller communities across Alberta. And at that point, it was a population of 2,500 and more. It did change a number of years later to a population of 5,000 and over. And prior to that, it really was just the large cities, the Edmontons and Calgarys, for example. And I think that dates back to the 88 Olympics, as we're going through a Winter Olympics now. Of course, back in 88, Winter Olympics was in Calgary, and they had photo enforcement back then. So, and that does dovetail, again, sorry to bore the returning councillors, but for the new councillors, that does dovetail in with the municipal policing service agreement. So if a community is under 5,000, so I won't pick on Westlock, but just as a showcase, when that community is under 5,000, they were not paying for any of their RCMP contract costs. Above 5,000, of course, there's a percentage of those costs, and Slave Lake would fit into that model. Over the last couple of years, that there's been some changes made, and I won't get into all the history on that. But it was at that time that I reached out. My personal history, and I don't even know if you know that, Mr. Mayor, but a number of years ago, I was a councillor myself, and my real job was flying airplanes. So I had a passion as a young kid. I was the guy flying the airplane, and somebody like Larry here, who was with the RCMP for 35 years, would have been in the back seat running the stopwatches, and we were doing speed patrols up and down Peace River highways and Grand Prairie, and away you go.
You know what? This is I mean to interrupt, but we were just actually talking about this last week because we were driving to BC there last week to kids skiing, and you see these signs there with the air radar piece or whatever else that you could be clocked as you're going, and I was like, we were talking about how does that even physically happen that they were able to do that, and you think there's maybe like a radar gun on it. I started to think I don't even know if this actually happens. And so then another guy was saying, I think they have a guy with a stopwatch and they have lines on the road and that's how they dictate how fast you're going. And I'm like, no, it's got to be more high tech than that. And we looked it up and that's what it is. There's a guy in a plane with a stopwatch that just sees the car go between the line and they can clock how fast it's going.
And
Just do time distance over that and you get a speed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. So
It's
then I
pretty
started
simple.
noticing that there's
lines on the road.
lines on the road.
Yeah. And you'll also know that there's radar detectors that are right outside of that red Mustang that the guy throws when he gets pulled over and stomps on it.
Okay.
And then the police officer on the ground that's pulling them in, because we're in radio communication with them. Is this the red Mustang? Yes, yes, yes. I'm pulling him over now. Yes, yes, yes. And the guy will take his radar detector and throw it on the ground, and this crazy thing doesn't work. And of course, the RCMP officer goes, it's not radar, it's an airplane. So you just wrecked your radar detector for no good reason. But at any rate,
Sorry, sidetracking. Give-
No, perfect. It dovetails into it perfectly. So when that enabling legislation came forward, I contacted all of the communities across Alberta that met the spec, and Devon, Alberta was the first one that came on board, and we started up in Devon, and then 18 years later, here we are. And yeah, part of the history as we go through this and some of the conversations that we've had with your acting CAO, just bringing to light some of the Canadian context. So you did have places like British Columbia and Ontario that got rid of photo enforcement altogether. There was a political statement that was made by Mike Harris back in '95, and he said, it doesn't work, and if I get in, I'm going to get rid of it. So here we are, and every single day, our phone rings from some community in Ontario that wants us to come out there. The legislation is now changing back in Ontario because the number one thing that they hear when they go door knocking is people are speeding, and we need to do something about people speeding, on our streets. And I know that you guys just went through municipal elections, and I'm going to suggest that probably wasn't the number one thing that you heard when you went door knocking door to door, or certainly not like it was, back in 2015 when we started in Slave Lake, and certainly back in 2004 when we started in Alberta. We did have those comments over and over again in Alberta. And I'm happy to say that, the photo enforcement program in Slave Lake, I think it should be, loud and proud. It's working. It has worked. People have slowed down. There's still, as you can see from some of the traffic data, that there are those occasional people on Highway 88 that are blasting through. So the work is not 100% done, but on the whole, has it been this sort of, wet blanket on a smoldering fire? 100%. And in fact, we have the data to prove that. And that goes back to your charts that you were talking about. So currently we are under this automated traffic enforcement freeze, and we understand from the province that that's going to end December 1st of 2022. And there was a bunch of different rationale around that. The government, when there was a government change, and I think the previous NDP government as well, wanted to take a look at automated traffic enforcement. There was a big report. I don't know if it was Deloitte and Touche or something like that that compiled that report. And just really doing a deep dive into, is it like what some of the media purports, that this is a cash cow and that's all it is and it doesn't actually work? Or is there more to it than that? Is it really about Vision Zero and making the roadways safer, et cetera? So under this freeze, there's no new technology allowed. So if we wanted to get into enforcing distracted driving, which of course is a huge issue nowadays, with lots of people texting, you have barren dry roads and somebody is bumping into somebody in front of them and there's no reason why. It's like, well, we can probably imagine that there was a cell phone involved there, et cetera. Another issue for a number of communities is that under this freeze, there's no new zones allowed. So if you've done any development, and I know in a number of communities, maybe there's a new school or a new development, residential development with the new roadway, and people are, their speed is a little bit higher on those roadways. We're not allowed to do any enforcement on there under this freeze, which has been going on now for a couple of years and will continue until December.
I just think, I'm not a huge fan of full right. Don't you think that would be where you would put it in a new development? Because people haven't curbed their speeding habits there yet?
100%, but when the province says no new zones, you're not allowed to bring any new equipment in and et cetera until we do our full and complete evaluation. And then after December 1st, like right now, we can collect data, we can do whatever we want. But if there is an issue in those zones, then you can put photo enforcement in, and they're coming out with a myriad of requirements around that to make sure to everybody who wants to take a shot at photo enforcement, exactly that it is for the right reasons, that it is to slow those vehicles down and no other reason.
And so under no new zones, would that encompass if we identified a new, oh, sorry, my mic slowed down, Jordan's. So under no new zones, would that encompass, like, we can't find a new zone, like a old development that we think they're speeding, like that's a new zone, right? Like we.
The only thing here, and I do have that as a bottom bullet here, is the ability to reactivate dormant zones. So if there was a zone a couple of years ago where people were speeding, and I think Larry will speak to that in 3 or 4 slides here. And I don't want to steal your thunder, but that you can reactivate a zone.
A dormant zone.
Fair enough.
Yep, thanks.
So in terms of new guidelines, yeah, the database decisions for the zone. So these zones really are going to have to be data driven, that you can't just come out and say, okay, well, we think that people are flying up and down Highway 88 and because we heard somebody say that at the post office. So we're going to, you know, put together a piece of paper and authorize that zone and away you go. No, we're going to have to go out with our data collectors, or I know that you guys have your data collectors as well, your speed reader boards. And it really will be data driven that, okay, during this, you know, time of the day, these days of the week, here's when the speeding issue happens. And if it's on a Monday morning at 9 a.m., then we're not allowed to be there Saturday morning at 9 a.m. It's like, no, if the speeding issue is Monday morning at 9 a.m., that's when you have to be there with your automated traffic enforcement.
So just a quick question here. So on your previous slide, it said latest announced changes do not impact Slave Lake. And when I was going through some stuff on the Alberta government website, it said there's some more reporting requirements. And then I think by the end of this year, vehicles have to be wrapped as well. Do those impact Slave Lake, or are we exempt from that?
No, they will be impacting Slave Lake, but what's not impacting right now is 1st of April, if you had any 40 kilometer zones, residential areas that were approved zones, they'd be gone. So we couldn't work those anymore. And then coming June 1st, there's a change from one of the criteria, two of the criteria is it couldn't be enforced by conventional means. So police officer wasn't able to enforce it because of the layout of the road, or there's public complaints. If those were the only 1 or 2 criteria for that zone would now be gone as of 1st of June. So, and then moving forward with the data, all the existing zones in Slave Lake have to meet the new criteria by December 1st. And I'm working with Gary and the RCMP on that. It is basically really data driven, but we have, as you'll see in some of these colors, we still have some good stats that show there's still a speeding problem. So it will meet the threshold. Will all of them meet it? Probably not. Will your problematic areas meet the threshold? Absolutely. And the exemption to that are school playground zones. If it's a school playground zone, automatically it's approved because of the high risk of the kids. And it makes sense. And then any construction zones for the safety of the workers there.
Okay.
So immediately it's not impacting you. Ultimately by the 1st of December, the zones will have to be totally refreshed looking at the new criteria.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And then I do want to just respond specifically to the last part of your question, which was wrapping of vehicles. And I think, you know, anybody who's driven down to Edmonton in the last, year or two, or watched some of the news programs, you've seen these fully fluorescent wrapped vehicles, you know, on top of the Henday or something like that. Edmonton was wrapping some of them, and others were more covert or with a discrete City of Edmonton enforcement. And what they say in these new guidelines is that they'll have to be wrapped or a sandwich board. So we would have to comply with that. And, working with the different communities, we do rotate vehicles around. So, putting, City of St. Albert on the side of it and then bringing it to Slave Lake, well, that's not going to work. So we are looking, and we do rotate vehicles as part of our business plan. Not just geographically, but also the frequencies. And so there would be a significant cost to wrapping and unwrapping. So we're looking at going the sandwich board route. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
And so fortunately, unfortunately, a lot of that work is on Larry's plate, and thank you, Larry, for doing, because it is a lot of work. All of those zones have to be looked at, signed off by the RCMP, every single one of them across the province. And as he said, if the old criteria said, hey, if you had public complaints, so we would actually log the public complaints and then say, hey, we've had 5 or 10 people on this residential street who are complaining in front of their house, people are speeding, and that would meet the previous criteria for, okay, we're going to set up the zone, the RCMP go there, and their fully marked vehicle sticks out like a sore thumb and nobody slows down because they can see them as they come around the corner or something like that. So yeah, they're not able to solve the problem in that situation. So then that's when they would ask us to go in and start doing photo enforcement. And now that will no longer be a criteria. So, back to, I think your comment, some of these things, you'd think that those would be the areas that you would want to go and solve these problems. But there you go. There's the new guidelines. So in terms of people that like the data, you know, you can look at that top one there and, you know, almost a 90% reduction in terms of the number of violations on Highway 88 over the course of the last 5 years. The operational hours have been reduced dramatically over the years. And, you know, almost 50% stop sign, red light violations reduced. And you can see 52% of hours are worked. So it's not just, oh, well, you're just sitting on the highway. No, we're not. We know that we're not. Some of these charts that you can see from the bottom as we roll to the next one, at the bottom of those charts, you can see a number of them are blue, a number of the school zones. We know when we go there, we're just flying the flag, and moms and dads and little, you know, kids are sometimes, you know, seeing us and waving at us. Sometimes they'll thank us for being there and slowing people down. So the program has worked. I mean, it's been a dramatic change, and I think it's a beautiful success story. And I think a number of towns and cities in Ontario that we talk with every single day would love to be in your position in terms of the traffic safety. And so just as you go through these, again, for new councillors, what we're looking at here, each one of those charts is that looks to me like 6 times 5. So if my math is right, about 30 different charts there. And from the left side, if we look at that top left one, you can see that there's some red in it and a bunch of yellow. So we're looking at, from the left, in a vertical column, that is Sunday to Saturday, and then 24 hours in the day from top to bottom. So you can see that, that here's a snapshot of the zones that we were asked to take a look at. So this really is almost like a map of Slave Lake in terms of speeding. So, you know, and from high frequency to low frequency on the bottom right, you know, if that's a residential street and people are saying, hey, everybody's speeding in front of my house, you need to get the police here and your peace officers and everything. And you can look at the bottom right and you can tell, you know, Jane Doe or John Doe, I'm sorry, but nobody is speeding in front of your house ever. And then up on the top left, well, actually on Sunday afternoon and Friday afternoon, it's like, yeah, we've got some problems and we need to get out there. And whether you redeploy your RCMP or your peace officers or ask us to go out there and do some work, and that's how you read that kind of chart. And so this one you can see, yeah, 2018, and when you compare them sort of year over year, you can see that decrease. And our goal with these is pretty simple, to go from red to blue. And you know, I know that all of these communities in Alberta have received reference requests from communities in Ontario, and so people, you know, the business people among you would say, well, that's kind of counterintuitive. You're in business to be in business. And it's like a rhetorical question that I would ask to Mayor and Council would be, you know, if you took a look at January, for example, in Slave Lake, how many tickets? So I think people have a misnomer about photo enforcement, and it's this huge thing, and it's this cash cow, and it's all these things that it really isn't. And it's like, yeah, how many tickets were issued in January in Slave Lake? And it's like, if you took your 31 days, it's an average of 2 a day. That's it. So it's not this, oh, they went out there and they issued 50 tickets yesterday, or they did this. It's like, no. And maybe when we started, there was an issue, and maybe that did happen, but that is not the reality today. The reality today is that people en masse in Slave Lake have learned the lesson. They've done the hard work. They've, you know, nobody likes to get a ticket, but they've, you know, taken their licks, and they've learned the lesson, and people are driving pretty safely through here. And not to say that, and I'll pick on people from High Level because I grew up there. Not to say that people aren't taking your back road up to Yellowknife, Fort Vermilion, High Level, or what have you, and whistling through here. And as you can see from the charts that we provide every month, that the majority of those people getting a ticket are from outside of Slave Lake. And we track that through post office postal codes. So we know commercial vehicles, private vehicles, where are they from? So are these your residents, or these people that are, you know, living in Slave en masse, you know, a high percentage? No, they're not. They're people from out of town who are just whistling through, and away you go. And unfortunately, they didn't pay attention to your sign and see the speed reader board on the highway, and that's awesome. So away you go. So traffic counters were rescheduled. So when you look at those sort of maps, just some rationale around the 2020, and then maybe Larry, I'll just let you talk about these ones here for a second from their, I think this is their speed
Yeah.
reader boards or data collectors.
Yeah, your speed reader boards that you have along Highway 88, they collect data. And the last data that we got from 2020, I guess they've had some technical issues that Gary is telling me that they're trying to resolve. They've got the data there, but it's a little bit corrupted, but they're working on getting it. But anyhow, it shows clearly these are 60 zones and there's still a huge speeding problem regarding the traffic flowing along Highway 88. This is similar to the data that we collect when we deploy our data collectors along
So
along 88.
these are maximum speeds though that someone has done. I thought what was quite encouraging is on the next column over that they're saying that 85% of the population is traveling through there at the average speed of what the speed limit is.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
Sorry, Councilor Adams.
The only side comment I'd have on that, with this being on the northbound side, it's picking up a good chunk of people turning left. So they're doing 40, 30.
Yeah, it averages
Right.
out from the traffic volume and the speeds it gets.
Okay,
But even like those 100 plus, 130, 140, those are very disconcerting because you have very little room for error. And that's where your fatals are going to come from, serious injuries.
okay.
So moving on to the next one there. So yeah, I think that en masse, it really is a balanced program right now, operating between the school zones, playground zones, highways, et cetera. It's not a question of that photo enforcement is out there all the time, every day in this zone or that zone. So, people that might accuse you of, over enforcing or just being out there trying to, it really isn't that. It's been we would call it maintenance mode where there was an issue, but then if you, and I think that that's one of the things we'd probably want to look at here with the next slide is, here's an example, and I can chat about a couple different examples, whether it's Ontario or this particular one is Drayton Valley, where they made a decision, and you can see here April, June, and September of the same year. And this is actually in a school zone on their main drag through Drayton Valley, where the number of violations in that school zone increased by approximately 30 times. So, and that's where I would say here, so it was the front page of the newspaper. We still have it in our office, and I think we have it framed. And it's, so anybody who would say, well, I don't support it and I want to get rid of it, and I, X, Y, and Z, I would say, you know what, but your community has done all the hard work. They've learned the lesson, and en masse, people are driving safely here. So if you put a newspaper article out there tomorrow that says, Yahoo, it's gone. Overnight, this is what happens. And that's a school zone. And 30 times, and those are not people that are doing 31 in a school zone. Those are people that the RCMP has given us the trigger speed. So those would be speeding tickets that they would actually pull somebody over if they were in their cruiser and give those people a ticket. So overnight, it's just like the wild, wild west. Oh, photo enforcement's gone. Well, great. Now we can, do whatever we want to do, because we know that there's not enough resources to take care of it and have everybody pulled over by an RCMP officer. So, I would say that, where we're at in Slave Lake, as I'm reiterating now, the work has been done. It's been a successful program. And, from our perspective, it really is in maintenance mode, and just continuing some of those things and looking at new zones, perhaps when the freeze is off for some of those new areas. Are there new things that we can do? And if working together, if you have a traffic safety committee or policing committee, as the freeze comes off, and maybe looking at things like distracted driving, or that really is up to you and also the province, because we would have to get some authorization to look at other programs. But that's where that's at.
Councilor Graham, I got a question.
Well, with that, sorry, Mike, in Drayton Valley, okay, I guess first, why did they remove the program?
It really was council. It was a council decision that, there was a number of people that were upset with the program, and
And they removed it in April or in June or what?
No, in April.
In April, okay.
And then, so that was the RCMP radar, that was all tickets issued, or that was just, they just
No,
measured the
they allowed
speeds
us
for
to
a month?
keep our traffic counters there. So these are our small sort of milk carton sized boxes that are battery powered. There's no camera attached to it, but we go to the exact same pole. And so that's what happens with those mosaics that you were looking at. So what happens is we take 25 of these traffic counters, they're battery powered the last 2 weeks. And we have Brent, and he comes here to Slave Lake twice a year, and he puts them up on a pole and gets every vehicle that would drive by in that zone. And we work together with the community before we come and we say, okay, are there any other zones that you want us to collect data from? So there's no tickets issued. It really is, it's getting time, date. We know the exact location that the bolts are left on the pole. So we just come back and padlock it onto the pole. So we know it's the exact same location. And for 1 week, from Sunday to Saturday, we take a look and it measures every single vehicle that goes through. It can tell you if it's a car, if it's a motorcycle, if it's a tractor trailer. So we measure the length of the vehicle, the speed of the vehicle, the time to the second that these vehicles are going through. So that is all traffic counter data.
And so everyone felt free because they read the announcement in the newspaper, right?
Yeah.
So after a short term of driving like a-holes, did the RCMP start to set up there, and did their curb of their speed go back down? Because I can't imagine people just kept driving like that for the next 10 years.
I don't know if you have a comment
We
on that, Larry.
collected data actually for about a year in Drayton Valley, and there was an ongoing issue. And I believe they took it to council again internally, and council said, no, it's been dealt with. We're not going on that road anymore, so. I would almost suggest if we went in there today with data collectors, we'd find the same result as that right slide, very red. And we have just a classic example here locally in Slave Lake. We do data collection twice a year. And for a couple periods, there's a few zones along Caribou that showed blue, which shows it's not a problem, speeding problem. So the RCMP staff sergeant decided that he wasn't going to authorize it anymore because it wasn't based on any traffic rationale. And so we were out of there for 6 months. When we came back, we did our 6-month deployment. That red slide that you see in Drayton Valley there, that was showing up here. And he immediately reauthorized those zones.
See, I personally feel like our municipality has a problem with our speed thresholds. Playground zones, school zones, let's get everybody. Caribou Trail, it shouldn't be 50 kilometers an hour, it should be 60. Highway 88, it shouldn't be 60 kilometers an hour, it should be 80. So of course, we're gonna have this data. I think we have the wrong speed limits on some of these roads, right? So
But we're your contractor.
yeah.
And there've been a number of communities that have said exactly that comment. And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn when I say, St. Albert, for example, because over the course of the last 2 years, they changed a number of their zones. So anyway, I'll leave that to you as mayor and council and your engineering department, to right size your speed limits if because I mean, of course, I don't have a comment on, I'm not professionally trained, but your engineers would be, and they would know that for, 10 different reasons, here's why the speed limit is set at this limit on this road.
But in order to issue a violation, the RCMP sets speeds above the speed limit. And we don't issue any violation until it's triggered at that speed above the speed limit. And when we collect the data, to be fair, we collect the data and set the data at the RCMP approved
The threshold that's
rate.
above the.
Above,
speed limit.
which is above the speed limit. So if we set it at 50, you'd probably see some more problem areas like the 50 zone. You'd probably see a few more colors, but it's set at the threshold where we would issue a violation. And that's where we collect the data. So we're comparing apples to apples.
And the threshold zone dependent, it's not like, oh, we're blanketing Slave Lake at 7.
It is dependent, yes. Yeah. And it's reviewed all the time. When we go to review the criteria, it'll be reviewed again, and they most likely will make some adjustments.
Okay.
Anything else there, Larry? We had ATE hours, yeah, just in terms of the number of hours that we operate per week right now. So that's there. And that's it.
Okay.
Short and sweet. I don't know if you have any other, Mr. Mayor, questions or comments.
Any other questions, comments from council? All I would say is I remember discussing this with you before, and so then basically, like, if the public was to see this, it means nothing to them. And the average council member probably didn't even understand what this was, but basically that's these things in micro piece there. I remember talking about this previously, but you didn't really want to post a whole bunch of this data, the proprietary stuff, and
If you go to your community map that we host on your behalf on photo enforcement, and there's little balloons, if you click on that, each year of data that we've collected is posted into that zone, so it's very transparent, as well as the current authorization sheet from the RCMP just stating why they authorize that zone. So that's all there. They can see in live detail each year, and that we collect the data, and we're twice a year, so it's all superimposed into that map that we host for you.
okay.
So it actually was based on some of that feedback that we received from Slave Lake and other communities and the province. And we were actually the first ones to do that. So anybody who has an issue and it's like, oh, here's photo enforcement on my street, they can go to Google Earth Pro, they can through the Town of Slave Lake's website, and they can click on that and see all of the data right there about that zone that's in front of their house or on the highway. It's an open book. There's nothing proprietary about it. It truly is an open book.
So the only thing I would say is, there's no secret here that there's a portion of the population that does not enjoy having photo radar in the community. And so in the event, we are dealing with a report later on tonight where council has to make a decision if we're keeping photo radar or not. In the event that council was to keep it, I would suggest, though, it would be nice to have, because data is always what they're looking for. It would be nice to have something that was a one-pager blip that came in and said, when you're talking about all these massive reductions in percentages and some of those pieces, showing some of the average speeds there and those reductions. I think those are good news story items that it would be nice that it was all in one kind of thing that we can just say, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the data. Because just show them this slideshow as an example, half this data they wouldn't understand, they wouldn't know what to do with it, and use it as a successful advertising piece.
And we're happy to work with your communications department and put together those key messages and get that out there. It's not quite the same, but we can and we do with some communities, just because the numbers are so low and the numbers coming, but we're happy to include at no cost an insert in every one of the tickets that go out and explain some of the success stories with it. So every ticket that goes out, it costs us a piece of paper, include an insert with that, and everything that goes out explaining, please slow down while you're going, whatever your key messages are. Some they attack it a couple different times a year where they're putting in something about stop signs, another time a year something about their school zones and enforcement. So yeah, whatever the key messaging is that the community wants to look at to work together with your traffic safety program, we're happy to assist with that.
It's more about in 1 page or less, or 10 seconds or less, how you guys evaluating that you're succeeding or failing.
Yeah.
And I think that would make everybody's life a little bit easier. As I see, there's no more questions. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
And safe travels home.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will jump into, sorry, before we get into our report, so I'll touch on question period here real quick. So we kind of been flapping back and forth here on format when it comes to question period. And so the CAO update that we used to do every single council meeting there, we've kind of moved to the council of the whole only. However, we are including a piece called question period ongoing in future ones, so that if the CAO has a quick little blurb of something they want to bring up, they can, or if council has something they can as well. So with that, Roland, anything from the office of the CAO?
Yeah, so I just wanted to
Pause. It's all right. Thanks. Microphone.
I just wanted to inform council, just status on assessment notices. So we've received all the data for 2022. We're working on sending out assessment notices. So we've changed the process over the past couple of years. Before, I think 3 years ago, you used to get your tax notice and that had your assessment and it was a one and done. We now send out the assessment notices earlier on in the year. So you get a separate notice that gives everybody time to take a look at what their assessment is. And also to, if you have any questions, concerns, complaints, there's sufficient time there to resolve that. So you have about 67 days from the mailing date of the assessment notice to make a complaint. And generally how that process starts is before we get into any of the additional boards or phoning the assessor, you would contact the town directly, talk to our tax department, and they'll put you in contact with KCL and work on that. So the assessment notices for this year, we have planned to mail out on March 1st.
Okay.
So just to give everyone a heads up that will be going out to the public. They'll have 67 days to take a look, to have any complaints or anything that they notice that they want addressed. Right about till May 6th is the final date to complain. And then we have a tentative date for tax notices to mail out on May 9th.
Okay. As long as there's no bugs in the software, people will get the right notice.
That's right.
Okay. Any questions from council? Comments? Going once, going twice. Okay, we'll jump into reports. So the first is the contract renewal for global traffic.
Hey, good evening. I am presenting tonight on the contract renewal for global traffic. I will admit this is not my area of expertise. Gary wrote this and I'm presenting, so I'll do my best to answer any questions. So the town has had a contract with Global since 2014 doing automated traffic enforcement. This current contract is set to expire February 28th. As you guys just heard, so some of this we've already covered tonight, so I won't go into too much detail, but it's enforcement through guidelines from the Alberta Alberta Justice and Solicitor General Office. We also work in consultation with the Slave Lake RCMP. So automated traffic enforcement is just a piece of the puzzle for enforcement as well. It's not a standalone thing. It's used in partnership with the RCMP and community peace officers and everything too. So it's not like we're just doing automated traffic enforcement and not doing these other things. So there's some numbers there. As already mentioned, we are seeing less violations, but that's because it's working. So we're a success story from that point of view. So for discussion tonight, we're recommending doing a multi-year contract for an additional 2 years at the same rate and for the same hours. Currently, Global provides us up to 40 hours a week of ATE. So there's a few different options that we could present. One of the things is we've tried to work around not having the contract, having it kind of align with when elections are so that the new council can make decisions around that, if that's something that's important. So the options we presented are our recommendation to extend by 2 years. We could look at extending for a 2-year term, to look at different requests for proposal for ATE services, or to discontinue ATE within the town. So currently the way fines work is that Global charges or takes a portion of it. The Solicitor General and Justice take another percentage, and then we get the remaining there. So 22.91% of the total. In 2022, there was some changes, and that the percentage held on to by the AGSG was increased, but Global actually has been great and lowered their fees so that we were still taking home the same amount. So from the fees collected, it's allocated to a reserve that's then used for parks, playgrounds improvements, as well as traffic safety initiatives. So I think that was something important to remember as well, that if we do discontinue that program, that also means that we have revenue that we will lose, that we put it to our parks and playgrounds and traffic safety. So then we just have a breakdown there of the fines that we have collected. If Global's peace officers aren't able to attend court for trial, billing is adjusted in accord for that.
some policy impacts. So as mentioned, before, there's guidelines that are provided by the AGSG. There are some significant changes coming in 2022. So we will have to see how those all play out and what that means for us within the community. But overall, it is still a good thing because it helps with enforcement and traffic safety within the community. I'm just trying to see if there's anything I've missed there. We do have we'll have to put a traffic safety plan into effect. Gary has started to work with Global on that and what that means there. So just as part of this, key message is that ATE is another law enforcement tool, is complementary to conventional enforcement such as RCMP or peace officers. The goal of traffic safety is to seek driver compliance and create enhanced traffic safety in the community by reducing collisions and collision severity. It's not specifically mentioned in our strategic plan, but ATE does fall into the strategic priority of creating a livable community through community safety. And so, yeah, overall, our recommendation would be to extend Global's contract for 2 years.
Okay, discussion from council, comments, questions. Councilor Brandel.
I've always been a fan. I might be a minority in the council this year, but I'm not sure. But like it's just one more tool in the belt. It's not the end all be all, of course, but the numbers don't lie. And, you know, the police officers are, we just heard today in protective services that they're actually full complement right now, but that's not usual for our community. So usually we're pretty stretched, and so are our peace officers. So I just think the added project or program to the community is a benefit, and the numbers don't lie. So I am a fan, and I am going to vote for it.
Does that mean you want to put a motion on the floor?
I can.
Okay, let's do that.
I move the council direct administration to enter into an amending agreement with Global Traffic Group Limited for an additional term from March 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2024.
Okay, further discussion, Councillor Adams.
A couple points I have on here. I'm on the fence with photo radar. I do like the data collection, and I do like the fact that we're targeting the areas that need it. We are shorthanded in both our peace officer pieces. We all have discussed. And then with the RCMP not always being at full complement is a challenge. One of the things that's not tied to this contract that I feel we do need to discuss more is our allocation of the funds being more guided towards where these speed problems are, not only identifying, but trying to reduce the speed incidences that are occurring, either through signage. We've made some steps towards that, but I don't think we've done enough. So I'd like to see that reviewed at some time in the future. As far as the contract length at this time, I don't agree with having a 2-year contract on this at this time. I would like to review only after 1 year. And my reasoning behind that would be more towards the changes in that Justice is bringing forward and what we're going to be seeing there in the next coming months or whenever it is they come out with those decisions, and to make the commitment for the longer term. I think we should actually slow that down.
Okay.
I have a question.
Councillor Graham.
And you might not be able to answer it, but I bet you they can. What's the, how long does it take before someone gets a ticket from the infraction time? Ballpark.
It's in the mail within 3 business days.
So you'd probably get it in 5 days?
And both, yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious, like I understand the data doesn't lie, but if I get a ticket 5 days later from speeding, I'm not making that moment any safer. And if a lot of our infractions are from out of town, how is that making anything safer when they get back to their home base is what I'm wondering.
Councillor Drew.
some of my concerns with that are along the same lines. So it was said in the presentation that the majority of tickets that are occurring on the highway are from our out of town visitors. My personal opinion on that is that, while yes, we do want to have speed reduction in those zones, I think there's potentially other ways to go about it than ticketing people that are either traveling through or visiting our community. I don't think that puts a great taste in, I know whenever I always used to get tickets in Devon coming up the hill because there's always photo radar there. And you know what? I didn't learn my lesson over many, many times, but it doesn't give me a great impression of that community. So I'm a little bit, I hesitate with photo radar. My frustrations come in that, yes, a lot of them are not members of our community. And I also have an issue a little bit with the funds being used for park and playground improvements. I think they should be directed more towards safety initiatives such as the speed change signs.
When, just as a comment for some of those of you that are new to, it has to be something that, like, the photo radar funds have to fund something that's not operational. So just so you guys are aware of that, I don't know if that's been laid out, but because there's never, like, it's not going to be a consistent thing. So that's why parks and playgrounds, it has gone towards that. We definitely, like, internally could look at more traffic safety things, but it's one of those things too, because hopefully we'll see a decrease. We don't want to build capacity and then have that not there because we don't have the revenue from funding. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
Yeah, my opinion is just, I understand that there's restrictions in the program. My whole point was just that if we're doing this to improve safety in the community, then the resulting fund should also be directed towards safety in the community.
Okay, any other questions, comments? I'll weigh in and say a couple of things. So first off, the policy was always set up that council didn't want to look at it as a monetary piece. And so the policy was built around the funds that come in, that they're not to be used for any operational or to offset budget. They're used for one-time capital pieces only. And so that's why we use some for safety signage and speed signage, as well as we've used it for some of our parks and playgrounds. If council has a desire to change that policy to whatever they want it to be, totally can do that. We had a mention of concerns around speed limits within certain areas. I know in the past, the council has pushed back on Highway 88 as an example to get that speed limit back up to 80 kilometers an hour because that's Alberta Transportation and not us. The pushback that we got from them was until we do some realignment with the walking trail that comes so close to the highway that they weren't interested in raising that speed limit again, which I can understand some merit in that. You know, as a frequent user of Caribou Trail, I think that some speed changes could be made on that particular piece of road, but that's something we should take back to, you know, planning and development through our engineering contractors, probably for some feedback on that. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact, do I think that photo radar makes a difference for safety in our community? And I would say that it does. I think there's literally data here that shows us that it's working, that we've seen these significant changes. And they're a contractor. At the end of the day, they're a business. They're out here to make money, and they're reducing their hours because it's only profitable to be here when these infractions are happening. I truly believe that having RCMP sitting on the side of the road would make a bigger difference than getting a ticket 5 days later. That being said, I will also comment that this is one tool of many. Bylaw is part of that tool. I think photo radar is part of that tool. I think RCMP is part of that tool. And so I think we recognize that. Like, as a council, we've had conversations with K Division since election and are currently lobbying for traffic enforcement services in the town of Slave Lake. It used to be here pre-fire. And RCMP is looking at that. But the reality is right now we don't have that. The reality is we're not putting more money into additional RCMP. So the question is removing this, are we going to be a safer community or a less safe community? And I think if people are following the traffic laws that are dictated within our community, I would think that we are a safer community. And the people, although the people that the majority they're getting are coming from outside of our community, they're essentially, we either have a signage issue that they cannot read the signs that are put up out there, or they don't care. And so for the benefit and the protection of the people that live here, and I think that it makes sense to continue to use this program. Lastly, about the piece around the 1 year, 2 year piece, if there was a council wanted to play in that space, I have no issue. I'm less concerned about the length of the contract and more that I think until we have an alternative that's going to help us there, I don't think getting rid of it makes sense. The only thing I would say is that the government has basically talked about this end date of the end of the year, which in government terms means we'll kind of probably extend that or tell you later. And so I would at least put in like a 6-month buffer in there so we can understand the data that comes out. So rather, because basically this contract ends at the end of February, they're going to announce some stuff at the beginning of January, and we've got a couple of weeks to figure out what all that means and make a decision. I would say, go with something at the end of June or something, so there's time to elaborate what that means. Because
It
in reality,
already has been extended,
Yeah,
so,
totally.
yeah.
in reality, what might end up happening is photo radar doesn't exist in Alberta anymore. That might be a direction that they go, and it won't matter anymore. But I would say rather than build our decisions based on, them coming out, whatever, I would give a little bit of room so administration and our contractors and our elected officials have an understanding of what that impact is going to be. My 2 cents. Councilor Graham.
Do you personally think something like more of the speed signs would give a quicker result? Like, I understand safety, but 5 days later or longer for going max speed was 148. Well, 148, you might get your vehicle impounded if you got pulled over by an RCMP officer.
I think putting additional speed signs within our community is not going to make our community less safe. Like, I think it's a good idea, right? That's council deciding, okay, we need to use more of the funds that come in and add more signs. And then, that can be a budget discussion.
Because I see an RCMP officer or even a white vehicle for that matter, and I hit the brake, whether I'm going 30 or 80, I just hit the brake. It's just second nature, right? You see those speed signs, you know exactly what you're going. Like, that's also safe.
Agreed. So I don't necessarily think that adding those is a bad idea. And once again, it's another tool that we can use that I think will have a positive impact on safety in our community. And so a number of council members have talked about expressing that they'd like to see more things built in there. I think let's spend some more time there. Other questions, comments? Councilor Adams.
I would like to put a amendment motion then to change it to 1 year from
To the 12 months instead of 24. Okay. And so no desire to put it at 18 or something so that there's a bit of a buffer?
Is there a point? Do you think it's going to matter? They're going to announce an extension. It's probably going to extend another year, at which time then we're doing it anyways. We're going to have to redo
I
it.
was just thinking enough of a buffer that as the information comes out, administration and isn't scrambling to figure out what all that means within a couple of months.
I see what you're saying. Sure, put it to 18 months.
So that would put it at the end of.
Got the timeline right then? 18 months would put it in, no, 15 months.
End of August.
Right now we're at, yeah. Or we could say something the end of June or whatever else and just put a date on it.
Yeah,
versus
put the
a
date end of
monthly thing.
June 30th.
Okay. So Councilor Adams would like to do a friendly amendment to extend the contract to June 30th, 2023. Councilor Brandel, do you accept that friendly amendment?
Sure.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion? Motion is on the floor. Those in favor? Those opposed? That is carried. We will move on to our next item. Electric vehicle charging program. Kush Patel.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The purpose of this report is to provide information to council on the electric vehicle charging program grant. On January 19th, 2022, this announcement was released. This program funds municipality for installation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure on municipally owned land to support and accelerate adoption of electric vehicle in Alberta. The grant is administered through Municipal Climate Change Action Center, MCCAC, with funding sourced 50% from Government of Alberta and 50% from Natural Resources Canada. The total funding through this program is capped at $200,000 per municipality. Only level 2 and level 3 chargers are eligible for funding. The town administration successfully submitted expression of interest, which is the step 1 of the grant application, on January 20th. Since then, we had requested quotes from EV charger suppliers to determine the cost to install the infrastructure. The town administration also referred a resource, which is PlugShare website, to determine what kind of infrastructure is presently available across the Alberta. And we noted that there is no fast charging infrastructure available north of Edmonton. So to bridge the fast charging infrastructure gap, administration is considering to seek funding for level 3, which would be 100 kilowatt charging infrastructure through this program. The town administration has considered 2 options for installation. One is on right across the library, one of the parking stalls along Main Street. And second location is in parking stall at MRC. Both the locations were considered based on the amenities that are present around, and also what kind of existing electrical infrastructure available at those locations, which is a requirement of the grant. The preferred location would be at the library stall because it is more accessible from Main Street, and also it's really close to downtown core. As per the program guidebook, all hardware installation support like electrical engineering work, duct work, trenching work, signage will be considered as eligible cost. Expenses like electrical upgrade to the existing feed line, installation of transformers, purchase of maintenance support, purchase of extended warranties will be ineligible. As per early estimate, the installation at the preferred location would cost $140,000, of which $125,000 would be reimbursed through this program. And as a part of budget deliberations that is ongoing, we can bring forward those ineligible costs for further discussion. And our recommendation is to accept this report as information.
Okay, questions, comments from council? Councillor Drew.
So after you have, what's the process after we have got these quotes back? Like what's step 2, step 3? How does this work?
So step 2 is to just send in the application, which we did yesterday. And then the last step would be that they will, if they approve it, then municipality would have to sign the agreement with this granting agency, and then only the fund will be reimbursed.
Have they given you any indication of timeline on when they're doing approvals?
Not really. It is first come, first serve basis.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
How many charge stations are you looking at?
So here we are looking at 100 kilowatt, which has 2 connection support, basically. So 2, yeah, I mean, like, so it will be a one charging station, and it has 2 handles, same as a gas station.
Okay, then just another question for that one. Why are we just keeping it down below the grant number? Why don't we pushing that 200 limit?
I mean, like, we can go, but when I attended the webinar, they said that not necessarily they will be approving those municipalities which seek full funding. So that's why we leave a little bit buffer so that our approval comes through. Yeah.
So you're strategic.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Councillor Adams.
Motion to accept this information.
Any further discussion? I just had one point. I actually kind of preferred the MRC site over the library one. As much as it promoted stuff for downtown, you just get a lot more traffic at the MRC. You got a lot of visitors coming from out of town to do whatever else. I would just kind of, my first thought was I kind of like the MRC better, but yeah, I think I could live with at the library center.
I think that I like the library center better. And the reason why I like the library center better is you have to leave your vehicle to charge. And if it is like the middle of winter, you have washrooms, the library and the government building, which you can all enter for free, or you have access more easily to restaurants and other amenities around the region. I was just more thinking in winter. In summer, walking MRC makes a lot more sense. In the winter, I think this is probably the better choice.
Yeah, and I would just say that I was kind of for the same reason, but opposite, because the MRC is open evenings and weekends. Most of the time, this facility isn't. But I don't know. I'm sure it's 601, half a dozen the other, so the guy can live with it. Motions on the floor to accept his information. Any discussion?
But just one last question. How long does it take? Might have said in the report for a full charge for a typical vehicle under?
So level 3 would take between 30 minutes and 40 minutes to reach 80% or more.
From zero.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like people would be in their vehicles if it was cold out for a super long time anyways. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. Thanks, Kush.
Thank you.
Excited to see where that goes. Supplementary assessment bylaw. I'm guessing you are Christine. Okay.
We're just here to set up the supplementary assessment bylaw for the 2022 year. So this is an annual process to capture some of the supplemental assessment. I would say, looking at where we were versus where we are now, we definitely generated more revenue through the supplemental assessment, or captured more revenue earlier after the fire when there was a lot more development. It is definitely tapered off over the years. Nonetheless, we still feel that it is still a useful tool to have in place. And so we've just prepared the bylaw for council.
Okay, before you wrap that up there, before we jump into questions or whatever else, Roland, for the people that are new to council, I think talking about the chart on page 32 would be beneficial for half a second.
Right, so what we do here with the supplemental assessment is just a way to capture any land or house under construction that might not be part of the assessment roll or have a different value on the previous year. When they do go to, when we do supplementals in the fall, it just captures that at an accelerated rate. So at the end of the day, you're not paying more taxes per se. It's just when we poke in that box to go take a look to see the value of the property.
Okay, Councilor Brown.
Roland, did we,
Microphone, sorry.
I turned it on.
Oh, sorry.
Did we change the date of our supplementary? Didn't we used to do this like just before fall? It was July, August, somewhere in there?
For the bylaw or?
No, the supplementary, when we used to send it out.
Yeah, usually is in the fall.
Okay, so you just bringing it to us early this year, or?
No, usually every year right around this time, we set the actual bylaw, but we just don't do the supplemental till.
But you don't send it out until then? Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, the bylaw is in place earlier on. We do that all at the same time, so it's a
Okay,
good to go. And, you know, we can definitely review it year after year. I see less and less need for it. I would say last year, I think, what did we earn in supplemental is about $2,000. So is it needed? No. Is it nice to have? You know, we still see a little bit of value in there, but we'll continue to see where that goes. Generally, when you're growing, you see more value of that, just capturing those tax dollars just a little bit earlier. But in the current market, when we're not growing, I think with the economic development program, it's probably safe to keep this in place for now. It's not it's a low impact type of item, but good to have on there on a go forward basis.
Okay, Councilor Adams.
How does this impact our cost to our contractor for assessments? Like, I imagine we got to engage them to do this.
Yeah, so if I was to remove it, there would be no material substantial savings. It's not a very costly item. if we removed it.
I'm just wondering if it's worth the effort when we're talking about $2,000. It doesn't take long to spend $2,000.
I've had that conversation offline with the assessor already, so in their view, it's not a very time consuming process at this point, so the decision to leave it in was, it's not taking them a lot of time, it's not costing us a lot of money.
And we wouldn't see any material savings by not doing it.
No.
Okay, other questions, comments? Counselor Brandel.
I will make a motion. I move that supplementary assessment bylaw 01/22/2022 receive first reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Ferguson.
A supplementary assessment bylaw 01/2022 receive second reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Counselor Hughes.
I move that council gives unanimous consent to give supplementary assessment bylaw 01/2022 third reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, Counselor Drew.
That supplementary assessment bylaw 01/2022 receives third and final reading.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Okay, MDP, page 33 in our package.
All right, so the next report is brought forth by the planning department. So this is just for first reading only, so no decision needs to be made after that. So the purpose of the report here is just to give first reading and set the date for the required public hearing. So the background has to do with the redistricting part of the Big Fish Bay that was rezoned in 2018, but the MDP was never updated first. This will redistrict the property from industrial to regional commercial. And realistically, the purpose of this report is to pass through first reading and then get a go on the public hearing. So first, before we do that, we need to advertise the public hearing within the specified time period.
Okay, and so a reminder to council that typically in first readings, we don't debate unless they are, unless we are driving the application ourselves. In which case this one we are. And so if you have any concerns on this, that should be the time to voice them so that they, so that the administration has the right direction. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody want to play the game tonight? Councilor Brandel.
I move that bylaw 02/2022 to redistrict the municipal development plan map of the municipal by redesignated ATS Southwest 173/6 west of the 5th from industrial to regional commercial receive first reading and the required public hearing to be scheduled for March 15th, 2022. I will learn how to read one day.
Well, no, I think there's something wrong with it. To redistrict the municipal development plan map of the municipality, is that what it's supposed to say?
Let's amend it to that.
Let's amend it to that. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to 4E, Clean Energy Improvement Program. Councilor Adams.
All right. You guys would have received a handout based on the Clean Energy Improvement Program that was put forward. A couple things that I wanted really to happen here is to have town investigate this further and see if it is something that could be of benefit to our community and what it may cost. There's a couple things in here that I'm feeling will be a strong benefit to us. That was mainly, well, first off, making it a little more accessible to renewable energy as a community in our area. I feel it helps boost job opportunities in our community by using local contractors on stuff that they're doing with getting that initial surge of development dollars. It also shows our commitment as a town towards sustainability and moving forward on these energy efficiency projects, which helps in our overall image to the province and outside. with having this in here, there's also access to grants that I feel the town can do, not only for offering this program, but in actual ongoing administration. And I feel it has some merit and we should look into it further.
Okay,
Thanks.
so essentially it's a program that is funded by, I believe, the federal government.
Yes, there's a group, it's run through, I think it's the municipalities, Alberta municipalities has part of it.
Okay,
And it's a provincial or the federal government money as well. And the idea being you can take out a loan in order to do these energy efficient ones that are mandate or put within scope from the municipality they're willing to support. It would take that loan amount for your project, puts that dollar value onto your taxes, and then the loan stays with the home. So if you do geothermal heating project for your home that costs $50,000, when you decide to move in 5 years, that benefit of not having to be on gas or having to pay any of that stays with the home, and so does the debt that goes with it for the next 10 years or whatever's left owing on it. And then it just pays out at a low interest rate over that time.
okay, and so what you'd like is for administration to do a little bit of research to understand, bring back a report there with options and costs.
If it's worthwhile, we've seen I've seen adoption here officially by Devon and Rocky Mountain House. City of Edmonton's coming on board later this year, and the city of Calgary is doing it as well. They're coming up on at the end of this year, I believe, is their anticipated time. So, yeah.
Okay. So do you want to put a motion on the floor for discussion?
Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
I'd like to put a motion on the floor that, sorry, guys.
You have something prepared or no?
Yeah, I got it written out here up at the top. Rough one. Motion I would like to make to direct the CAO to explore the cost benefits of offering the CEIP in Slave Lake and to present the findings on or before March 1st, 2022.
Why March 1st?
Because it's soon. I find if we leave it open, we're not going to address it for the next 2 years.
Okay, so the only pushback I would have with that is that we don't even have a meeting before March 1st. And so the other thing would be is that the CAO that you'd be tasking to do it is on holidays till March.
That's true.
2nd or 3rd.
Good point.
So,
Put it another month out, 2 months out, May then.
okay,
Sure, that works. What's that? I think we need a timeline on it. I think we should have a timeline on every motion. Or on every task.
so motions on the floor to come back to the first regular council meeting in
Thanks.
May.
Okay.
I have a question for Councillor Adams.
Well, we're on the discussion part, so you can have as many questions as you like.
So the municipality finances it? It's financed through the municipality, or how does that work exactly? Sorry.
You're basically putting, from what I understand of it, and this is why I would like the CAO to look further into it, is we're basically putting forward the ability to put it on the taxes. The funding and everything is coming from the federal governments and access to those funds.
Gotcha. Okay.
So they're fronting all the money. We're just having the ability to tie it to the property.
That's my limited understanding of it until we look further into it. We get beneficial interest rates of which you can also determine who can work from what I understand on the other communities, and I've read their bylaws, is who is able to do the project. So it has to be local ones, or it could be certain local ones.
Okay.
And whatnot.
Any further discussion on the motion? So administration, go look in the box, bring back some information, let us know what it looks like. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. I'll jump into correspondence here. So we have the Alberta 55+ provincial games coming up. They're reaching out to say, hey. Is this something that you would like to host? Oh, sorry, that's the next one. Invitation to bid is on Alberta summer, winter. This one is just talking about that the games are coming up and they're being hosted in They're looking for a venue. So both of these coming up are looking for a venue. So one's for the Alberta 55 plus provincial games, and the other one is an invitation to bid on the Alberta Summer Winter Games. I think we've had conversations about these in the past. I think they're great opportunities. I think events, and we were talking about some of this earlier today in our municipal, I think events like these are great to have in communities. So like has the history of demonstrating the success in 1994 when we hosted the Arctic Winter Games. And I think it was a great community spirit, great community pride piece that came together, but it also requires capacity. You know, I would hazard a guess that currently in our current state of administration and things that are going on and coming out of COVID and so on and so forth, because most of these are multi-million-dollar ones to host. With you get some provisional grant funding, but then you have to go back to private donors and sponsors for significant amounts of money to be able to host them. And typically they suggest that in communities under 10,000 that you partner with other communities. So then add some logistics. So you add those capacity. Love to look at this in the future, but I don't think it would be realistic for right now. My own 2 cents. Other questions, comments? If not, motion to accept the correspondence as information.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Ferguson. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried. Mayor's Corner intermunicipal meeting we had today. Went for a few hours there and some good discussion. One of the topics for sure was around what to do with the intermunicipal agreement, the fire services agreement expiring at the end of the year. The decision was made that their council needs some more time to discuss it and kind of identify where they wanted to spend some time and effort on certain items and talk about a process. So we have another meeting set up for the end of March, which at that point, hopefully we have some idea of where the MD would like to spend time discussing in each of those agreements, as well as a process for it and how it would be facilitated and so on and so forth. We talked about industrial land. That was another thing that our council has been talking about through our strategic planning and as well as budgeting, that there's a recognition of the fact that there is significant investment going on north of our community in the oil and gas sector. And so it's attracting companies that are interested in doing business in Slave Lake, but we have a limited availability of industrial land to do that. The town of Slave Lake was actually in this same predicament back in 2011. And we were having discussions in the spring of 2011 with the MD about possibly a location, and actually talking with private contractors that had access to some of the land to say, hey, there's a potential ability here to put industrial park in X amount of area. There's very early discussions. And council at this point is also in very early discussions, but recognizing that there's a need. We need to understand how we unlock a box and facilitate that. So we had that discussion with the MD, who is also very much interested. And actually talked about that they believe that they have a bunch of land that's developable in Mitsue Industrial Park as well. And I said, well, I don't think that's on the radar of the realty community, and I don't think it's on the radar of our economic development and planning development community. And so when people are contacting them and they're contacting us, that message isn't even getting out. So recommended that they package some of that information out to make it easier for developers or businesses that are interested. But the consensus was that, yeah, we need to look in this box and see how we can help and make things easier. We'll be reaching out to the mills here early in March. As a reminder to council that in April, we were going to set up some tours of some of the mills out there after some of our meetings that we had with all the mill ownership and management teams back in November. CNRL actually reached out to me this week and wants to have a quick discussion tomorrow. So I'm meeting with them for a few minutes. As well as the college reached out and wanted to talk about some education pieces. And so both of them were highlighted as quick 5-10 minute discussions, but we'll bring that information back to council and see where we go from there. Big thank you to the Tourism Society and Town of Slave Lake between the activities going on for Frostfest and the events that Tourism Society is putting on this week. A number of our council members are very much involved, and I would say that they wouldn't even exist without their input and their drive. And so just want to thank them for putting in that effort, especially, there's always these questions in the winter season about what to do. And this group has shown both with this and the all-in last year that they go above and beyond and make things happen. So I don't think you guys get enough recognition for that. So I just want to say, community thanks you. With that, I also wasn't here this week, so I don't mean to throw you on the spot, Councilor Graham, but I don't know if you had anything to add for stuff that you were busy with last week.
No, I added it last week.
What's that?
I did a little Mayor's Corner last week.
So with that, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councilor Drew. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? It's carried.